Previously on the Seventh Valkyrie, an unexpected guest suddenly appears to Strena, leaving her shaken and uncertain about the journey ahead. What's in store for this young Juverran orphan and her steadfast partner Goobah? Find out next on the Seventh Valkyrie.
The next part might hurt a bit. Strena's eyes went wide, and a wave of flames erupted from where their hands met and engulfed them both. In the mountainside caves far to the south of Reen, where the western expanse ran right up to the coast, a young girl woke up screaming, startling the enormous great wolf who guarded the entrance to the cave, as well as a forest walker who slept in human form next to the girl. For the first few moments after Strena awoke, thrashing and weeping and crying out for people who weren't there, the forest walker just held the young girl gently, with a hand on the shoulder and a soothing voice telling her that it was okay while the girl collected herself. But it was the warbles of the fat Huna, which the girl had insisted on carrying with her the entire way on wolfback, that ended up calming Strena. In time, her panic subsided, and she quieted, petting the fat Huna and then holding it tight in her arms.
Adjusting to the new region of the world can be hard,
the forest walker, Freya, said, still running her hand down Strena's back to calm her.
Especially if you're so in tune with the world around you. I remember once I had a young pup who sleepwalked halfway back home before we were able to catch up to them. That's why Rore is sleeping as a wolf.
Strena nodded, burying her face deeper into Goobah's feathers.
Here, come with me, and try to attune yourself to this place,
Freya said, standing up. They walked to the edge of the cave, where Freya patted the enormous Rore on the side as the great wolf returned to sleep. Freya, who had run in the form of some enormous black predator cat that Strena had never seen before, took a spot where she sat cross-legged on the ground outside the cave. She patted the ground next to her, but Strena did not step further than Rore.
Is everything okay, Strena? You are safe here.
I'm scared. There was a ghost in my dream that asked me questions and tried to get my permission for something, and when I tried to run away, it set the forest on fire.
Oh, that is scary. What a terrible nightmare. Do you remember what it wanted your permission to do?
It said that Cyrus needed me.
Strena was trying to collect her thoughts.
Mr. Ending said I had to give him permission or else Cyrus was gonna die.
Is Cyrus the name of the other young man that will be meeting us in the south?
Strena nodded and finally got the courage to go sit next to Freya.
Mr. Ending said that Cyrus wasn't gonna make it.
She was holding Goobah tightly in her arms.
I just want to see Cyrus again. I was so scared.
Freya hummed again as she listened to Strena and puzzled over which advice to give a scared, gifted girl. But before Freya could settle on a particular art or meditation or piece of guidance, Strena whipped her head around, eyes glowing emerald green as she stared towards the rocks, through the mountain and valley and forest to some indistinct point far, far away.
What is it now?
But the girl was frustrated. Twice, Strena paced the length of the ridge, eyes never leaving that point somewhere out in the distance, and eventually Freya stood to meet her.
Can I lend you my strength? Two Earth speakers are always better at listening than one.
Strena barely paid attention as Freya put a hand on her shoulder, but when their senses overlapped and their powers resonated, what Freya saw through the young girl was nearly incomprehensible. Strena seemed fixated on the faintest star of golden light that was being battered about in a sea of living color and rusted darkness. The longer Freya joined in on Strea's sensing, the more intense that hurricane of color became, growing so strong that Freya eventually shook the younger girl, snapping the two of them out of their trance. Rore, the enormous she-great wolf, had stepped over to protect the two women, and now towered over them, their nose to the wind. When Freya looked up, Rore grumbled something in the wild speech that might have roughly translated to failed hunt. But having seen through the eyes of Strena, Freya had seen enough to understand. War had come to Reen, and that golden child was still there, somewhere. Whether he was wrapped up in the chaos or not was impossible to tell. Freya pulled Strena into a tight hug, rumbling something to Rore in the wild speech. After a brief back and forth, Freya took one knee and met Strea's eyes.
Have you ever had dreams that came true before? Or dreams like this one that seemed a little bit too real?
Strena nodded and Freya pursed her lips.
Strena, we're going to get ready and set out again soon. If you can sense the shocks of war from here, then we must continue on, or others may pick up your trail.
Cyrus is in a war?
Freya growled to Rore, who grumbled.
There is certainly a battle happening in Reen. And, if our memory is accurate, it is between the gifted and the Edarens, like the war 7 years ago.
Strena's mouth was wide open as she tried to process everything that meant. But then Freya pulled her into another hug.
There is nothing to fear yet, my child. Outside of the fact that a battle is raging, we can't be sure what is happening.
Well, don't we have to do something?
Strena was starting to fidget.
We can't just leave him, right?
Freya held Strena in place gently but firmly.
We are more than a day's ride from Nazarene. Even if we could get back there, it would be putting you and Rore and me in danger. Possibly that young golden man, too, based on your resonance.
But Cyrus, I think he needs us. I can't leave him. He didn't leave me.
Strena, tell me, in your dream, did you give the ghost permission to protect Cyrus?
Strena froze.
You don't have to apologize, one way or another. It might have just been a dream.
Strena frowned and then nodded her head.
You gave the ghost permission?
Freya asked. Strena nodded again.
Then you have done everything that you could have done to protect him. And now, what you can focus on is being strong for what is to come. You have incredible gifts, and if you work on them now, you'll be able to help Cyrus too, if the time comes again.
Strena nodded, looking back over her shoulder towards the city that she had once called home, and towards the golden-haired young man who had felt more familiar than family. Freya had said if the time comes. Freya wasn't sure whether Strena would see Cyrus again. But for some reason, Strena was sure. She trusted Mr. Ending to keep his word. But why? That question stuck in Strena's mind as she packed up Goobah and her things and climbed onto Rore's back. He would keep their agreement. Strena was sure of it. But what had she given him permission to do?
Hey there! If you're hearing this, it means you're listening to the public version of this episode. And I appreciate you taking the time and your interest in the series. It really helps the algorithm, it helps us grow. But if you are enjoying the show, maybe take a look over at our Patreon. We have uncut versions of the early episodes, access to new chapters before they're released for the general public, and you can shape the future of the series by deciding on new merch drops, bonus content, and more. You can get started for free at patreon.com/Seventh Valkyrie. That's patreon.com/7THVALKYRIE. Hope to see you there.